Hey guys, welcome to Friyay's. I know I haven't done a video for a while. I'm still doing videos, but just trying to do them in a different way, maybe doing some reels and stuff like that. But one thing I really wanted to get get you guys an idea of is like, what's the difference between having someone who's really competent in VA loans or a VA home loan specialist and someone who is not. So, what I have in front of me today is a certificate of eligibility. Now, just so you guys know, certificate of eligibility is a document that allows us to determine if a client is eligible for the VA home loan or not. So without this document, they don't have the VA home loan. Now, what you have in front of you is a document that in the document, it tells me what's going on with the client's certificate of eligibility. So what this tells me is that how many VA loans they have, what they've used it for, all that stuff. And this client actually tried to pursue a VA loan a couple of years ago and was told he didn't have enough based on what this looks like. So, what that loan officer did about 4 or 5 years ago when he was trying to buy that house with his VA loan is that they sold this. Now, what they see here is that he has two VA loans that are currently reporting on his certificate of eligibility. And they ran a calculation based on the numbers in here, based on the total entitlement charge, and figured out he had about, maybe less than $300,000. This was 4 or 5 years ago. So less than 300, maybe probably around 250 to buy a house, zero down, right? Now, nowadays, of course, 4 to 5 years later, the numbers are a little bit higher. Today, if we just looked at the numbers the way they are now, he'd have about 322. However, what that other loan officer didn't realize was that one of the notes that is in the status for one of those VA loans says paid in full, no restoration. But they didn't really understand what that note meant, so they just basically treated it as an active VA loan. When I look at this, what I see is that there's one of two things that could have happened to that specific line. Is that one is that the house is sold, but the VA just hasn't updated it yet, which means that portion of entitlement would be restored, and then he would have more of his VA to use. Or he refinanced out of the VA loan, and that still is charged against him. Unfortunately, if you refinance out of a VA loan, it still stays on your credit report like it would here. And that's how it works, because I've done this too. I got screwed over by a previous loan officer that told me if I refinance a VA loan, it would restore what I've used. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that, and that's exactly how it would look on his certificate of eligibility. So I had one question for the client, and I asked him, based on this line, based on what this says here, this house you bought in 2019 with your VA loan, what's going on with the house? Did you refinance that house? Did you sell that house? And what he told me was that he actually sold that house a couple of years later. It was one of those houses that he wished he didn't sell. So for me, that's fortunate, because now I know that I just need to update his certificate of eligibility, rerun the numbers without that house counting against him, and now he actually has $580,000 to use instead. And the loan officer that looked at his file, a couple years ago, I don't think it was 4 or 5 years ago, but it was a couple years ago, didn't understand that and didn't know that that was a way to do that. So by just asking that one question, we were able to give him another $274,000 in buying power on his eligibility. And that's what's really important about understanding how the COE looks. At that time, that loan officer, I don't know the name of that person, but I don't remember what company he said that they worked for, but she didn't understand how this was read. So that's why it's really important to make sure that not only do you have the certificate of eligibility, but your loan officer knows how to read these, and making sure that the certificate of eligibility is as up to date as possible. Because sometimes when you sell a house, it doesn't get updated on the certificate of eligibility. It just happens. Sometimes we can look at the credit report and get a clue as if there's any current mortgages, but this client specifically has about 4 or 5 rental properties. So there's a lot of mortgages and a lot of refinances that have happened. So we got clarity, and about once I got the answer to that question, a day later I was able to correct his COE and get his restoration back without any penalties. So that's just an example of why this is so important, is that knowing that you're working with a VA competent lender and how it impacts a client's buying power, because he realized that now he can go up to about 580 without a down payment, which is more than what he needs. So look at them and think about all the money he's going to be able to save, not having to go conventional or FHA, or even have to come in with a down payment on a VA loan. So that's what's really important. Wanted to share that with you guys, but this just happened within the last week. So I just wanted to share that with you guys on why it's so important to make sure you're working with someone that specializes in the loan program that you're having your client go through. Otherwise, that's all I got for you guys. Nuke out.